Everybody will tell you Spanish is the easier one. The organization that has actually measured this on thousands of learners over decades does not agree. It puts Spanish and French in the same difficulty group, with the same number of hours. So if you came here for which one is easier, the honest answer is that the best data available says neither, and the question you are asking is the wrong one. Let me give you a better one. The better question is, which one is easier for you to keep doing for a year? Because both of these cost roughly the same, and the only thing that decides the outcome is whether you are still there in month 11. That is not a motivation online, it is the practical consequence of the two numbers you just saw being identical. Here is the plan. First, what that foreign service number means and where it comes from. Then the one place the two languages genuinely do differ, which is real and which almost nobody frames correctly. Then 4 questions that will actually decide it for you in about a minute. And a warning at the end about the answer people give that is nearly always wrong. The Foreign Service Institute trains diplomats for the United States government, and it has been sorting languages by how long they take an English speaker since the 1940s. Category 1 is the closest group to English. Spanish is in it, so is French, so is Italian, and so is Portuguese. 2 caveats I am obliged to give you. Those are full-time class hours with professional teachers, not evenings on an app, so do not read the number as a promise about your own calendar. And the target level is high, comfortable professional working ability, not holiday survival. What the number is good for is exactly what I'm using it for, which is comparing 2 languages against each other on the same scale. So why does everybody say Spanish is easier? Because of one thing, and it is genuinely true, but it is a smaller thing than it sounds. Spanish spelling tells you the pronunciation almost perfectly. If you learn 5 vowel sounds and a handful of rules, you can read a Spanish word you have never seen and say it correctly on the first try. That is unusual and it is a real gift. Cocodrilo, ferrocarril, desafortunadamente. 3 long words and every letter did a job. French does not work that way. French writes letters it does not say, changes the sound of a word depending on what follows it, and has vowel sounds English does not have at all. Reading French aloud correctly is a skill you have to build separately from understanding it. Now here is the correction nobody makes, and it is why the 2 totals come out level. That advantage is all at the start. It makes your first month in Spanish feel wonderful and your first month in French feel like fog. But the foreign service number is measuring the whole journey, and over a whole journey French pays some of it back. Its vocabulary overlaps with English far more heavily, because English spent several hundred years absorbing French words. Spanish front load the reward. French back loads it. Same total, different shape, and that difference in shape is worth knowing about, because it predicts exactly where each one will try to make you quit. If you pick Spanish, the danger is later. It gets harder exactly when the novelty runs out. If you pick French, the danger is week 2, and if you survive week 2, you are probably fine. So the 4 questions. None of them are about the languages, which is the point. Question 1. Where do you live and who is near you? If you are in the United States, Spanish is not a foreign language, it is a language on your street, and the practice is free and everywhere. If you are in Canada, in much of Africa, or in large parts of Europe, French does that job instead. Proximity beats every other argument on this list because it turns study into use. Question 2. Open whatever you watch and listen to most and look for which language is already in there. Not which one you think you should enjoy, which one is already in your history. Hours of listening is what makes this work, and the language whose content you genuinely want to consume gets those hours for free. Question 3. What does the work actually look like? If you want the reach of a language across many countries, Spanish gives you 20 countries where it is the everyday language. If you want a specific field, look at the field rather than the totals. French carries a lot of weight in diplomacy in international institutions and across a large part of Africa where it is growing fast. And question 4, which is the tiebreaker and slightly unserious until you take it seriously. Which one do you prefer the sound of? You are going to spend hundreds of hours with this noise in your ears. People treat that as frivolous next to career arguments, and then they abandon the sensible choice in month 4 because they never liked listening to it. Liking the sound is a completion strategy. Now the warning. There is one answer people give that is wrong more often than any other, and it is both. I will do both in parallel starting now. Spanish and French are close relatives. That sounds like an advantage, and at the beginner stage it is the opposite, because the words that are nearly the same are the ones that get tangled. You end up producing a private language that is neither, and worse, you have the hour going into each, just when each one most needs a run of consistent contact. Do them in sequence and the relationship flips from a problem to a gift. Get one to the point where you can follow a normal conversation, then start the other, and the second one costs dramatically less than the first did, because the grammar has the same skeleton and half the vocabulary rhymes. Sequence turns the similarity into a discount. Parallel turns it into interference. So the real answer to which one should I learn is usually which one should I learn first. That reframe removes most of the pressure from the decision, and most of the pressure was what made it take 3 months. Two claims get repeated so often in this argument that they have stopped being examined, and both of them are half true, which is the most misleading kind. Claim 1. Spanish is the useful one because so many people speak it. The speaker numbers are real and they are large. But a language is only useful where it is spoken, and usefulness is local, not global. 600 million speakers do you no good whatsoever if none of them are within 1,000 kilometers of you and you never travel. Total speakers is the statistic that sounds most decisive and applies to your life list. Claim 2. French is the prestigious one, the career one, the serious one. There is a historical core to that, and it still holds in specific places. International institutions, diplomacy, and a large and fast-growing part of Africa. But prestige is not a job, and outside those specific worlds it does very little. If somebody is choosing French for prestige and cannot name the room where that prestige gets spent, they have chosen a feeling. Strip both claims down and you get the same instruction. Stop comparing the languages and start describing your own life. Whichever of the two touches your actual week more often is the correct answer, and it is correct even if the other one wins on paper. One last practical difference, and it is the one I would weigh most heavily if I were choosing today: how soon can you enjoy the thing rather than study it? With Spanish, because the sound and the spelling agree, you can start listening to real material earlier and follow more of it, which means the enjoyable part arrives sooner. With French, the same material will stay foggy for longer because your ear has to do a harder job before the words separate. Not hard overall, harder earlier. And since almost nobody quits a language they are enjoying, arriving at enjoyment sooner is not a minor comfort. It is the single strongest predictor that you will still be there in month 11, which was the actual question this whole video is about. Since you are on a Spanish channel, let me at least show you what the Spanish side of the deal buys you in the first week. 4 sentences, no preparation, no translation. La jirafa vive en el parque. El parque es grande y tiene muchas plantas. Por la tarde la jirafa toma agua y come fruta. La jirafa está contenta. Every word in that was spelled the way it sounds, and several of them are words English already handed you. That is the front-loaded reward, and it is genuinely the nicest first month in any of these languages. The difficulty argument is a draw. The real difference is when each language pays you and when it tries to lose you, and the decision comes down to proximity, content, purpose, and sound. Pick on those in that order and pick today. If you have already tried one of them and stopped, I would like to know which and at what point. The stopping points are more informative than the starting reasons, and they are usually not where people expect. And whichever you choose, do not spend the tonight researching it. Spend tonight listening to 10 minutes of it. That tells you more than another comparison video, including this one. There are a couple of videos here that follow on from this one. Take a few seconds and pick one.